Well, Honda bloody well did it, didn't they? They finally put the 300cc in the 250L frame like we've been screaming for over 7 damn years. So let's get into what the hell is happening with this rumored 300L and 300 Rally before I explode with excitement. Okay, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about this bike until we got an official announcement from Honda that this was coming to markets other than Thailand, but they did say that they would let everyone know on the 13th, and that hasn't happened, and I'm so excited that I might explode, so I thought I'd talk about all the details we have and just get on with it and keep you updated as information comes out. So the big question you probably got is this bike legitimate? And the answer is yes, this bike is very much in existence. Honda Thailand have officially announced this with a press release. We can see videos of this bike being ridden, and this bike is currently on sale in Thailand. So the bike does exist. Where the confusion comes from is Japan have announced the 250cc version. They're not getting the 300. So we have both bikes being announced roughly at the same time, which has created a lot of confusion. So Thailand are getting the 300, Japan are getting the 250, and the rest of the world are all desperately waiting to see which model we get, myself included, as we haven't had any official confirmation. So we just have to wait like everyone else, but I am very excited. So let's talk about those specifications. So both bikes get the same engine. They both make 31 horsepower at 8,500 RPM and 19.3 foot-pounds, or roughly 26 and a bit newton meters of torque at 7,000 RPM. The other big news is the weight. Sites are saying 138 or 139 kilos. Now that's still significantly heavier. It's about 4 or 5 kilos heavier than the WR250R. But more importantly, that is significantly lighter than the old model. The old model was about 144 kilos, the CRF300L. So it's lost 5 kilos at least, so that's impressive. You might ask how Honda have actually managed to drop that much weight from the bike. Well, I think it's a combination of things. They're saying that the main reason that the bike is so much lighter is a completely revised frame, and that's where they've been able to save the most weight. And one of my viewers pointed this out in my last Honda video. He pointed out that the frame, it actually looks like the rear subframe is now completely welded to the rest of the frame, so it's all one piece. The worry here is that if you have a lot of gear on here and the subframe welds break, then you might be in for replacing the entire frame. So that's a little bit of a concern. They probably have saved a little bit of weight with plastics. It looks like this has a little less plastics on it than the outgoing model. The LED lights probably have a big deal. That light structure, the headlight, is probably a damn sight lighter than the outgoing model. This has a much slimmer exhaust, so I'm guessing they probably saved a bit of weight there too. They both have the same compression ratio. They both have the same gear spread. It's a 6-speed. They both get a quick shifter, so there's a lot of similarities on both bikes. Now, where things change for both bikes is in the ground clearance. The 300L is stated at 244 millimeters or 9.6 inches, and the Rally is 277 mil or 10.9 inches. And the seat height is 830 mils for the 300L and 895 mils for the Rally. Now, if those figures are sounding a bit short to you compared to the outgoing 250 models, you are correct. But don't be concerned just yet, as Thailand typically sell the shorter variants of the bikes as the standard models. So there are two versions of the current 250, at least in Japan they can get the short model and the standard model. In Thailand they just get the short model. So that's why you're seeing that lower ground clearance. We're also seeing less suspension travel in the specs as well. But I wouldn't be worried. I think that would be bumped up to about what you would expect out of the current 250L in the Western markets. Fuel capacity on the 300L is the same at 7.8 litres or 2 gallons for the Americans in the audience, and 12.8 litres on the Rally. So that's actually increased, I believe, from the old Rally, so that's good to see. You'll be able to get a bit more range. The suspension actually looks like it's the same telescopic upside down at 43 millimeters Pro-Link rear suspension. So that sounds like it's the same as the 250L and the Rally that's outgoing. we're not really sure if there's any updates to the internals or what's going on there. So this is some of the information that we'll just have to wait and see and hope that they do upgrade. I'd really like to see, even if they could just put the Rally suspension on the 250L to give it a bit more travel and clearance, as that was another thing that when you compare it to, say, the WR250R, the 250L does lack clearance, although a lot of the shorter riders will not like seeing that, but I would like to see that myself. The rest of the stuff is fairly standard. We really don't see too much changes. We do get LED lights all around to get that modern look. I have talked about the aesthetics before. I really like the aesthetics of the 300L. It looks fantastic, much more like the 450L. It looks a little more aggressive, more purposeful, and a bike I'd be more proud of owning. Something that gets the juices flowing and you can just look at in the garage and really like. There's nothing wrong with the 250L. It just looks a little bit pedestrian and a little bit weak sauce by 2020 standards. The other really nice thing to see on this bike is the dash. It's been updated and it's very conclusive for a dual sport. So this will be something that really makes this a great bike for the new rider. Having all that information, and especially that fuel gauge, as well as the gear indicator. When you're first learning and you might not be able to tell where exactly you are in the rev range or what gear you're in, this has an RPM meter straight on the screen with your kilometers, and it has the gear indicator, so it's got all the information you could need as a new rider. And hell, it's just nice to have as any kind of rider. So great to see that Honda have updated that as well. So that's all the specifications done. Let's grab our dual sport tinfoil hats and dive into some good old fashioned adventure news, speculation and keyboard comparisons. So let's dive into it. So the first bit of speculation is, will this reach the Western markets? I really hope so, and I've got a good feeling that it will. I don't know for sure. I do think that Honda know what they're doing, and they know that the Western market want bigger CC bikes. They understand that in theory. They figured that out a long time ago, so it would make sense for them to offer this 300 variant in the Western market. So I think we should all quietly hold on to hope and cross our little dual sport fingers, as I do think this will happen. We only just have to wait for confirmation. I could be wrong, so don't get your hopes up too much. Like I said, expect the worst, but hope for the best here. Number two is, I'm really wanting to get a dual sport. Should I wait or should I just go out and buy a bike now? Well, that all depends on how badly you need the bike and what you're wanting to do. Now, if you got patience and you don't need the bike immediately for trip or your form of transportation to get around day to day, I would say wait, because if we get this announcement of the 300L, it looks like it could be a very good bike. We've also got Kawasaki with their announcement on the 23rd of November, so who knows what they announce as well. The third thing in the speculation zone that we've got here is, how does this compare to the WR250R? As I've seen a lot of chatter there, I've actually seen a lot of WR250R riders seeming a little bit insecure and trying to justify that the WR250R is a better bike, when in reality we just don't know yet. We all know that I love the WR250R. For those of you that are going to comment and say, oh, you're a WR250R hater, please go and look back at my history. I've owned a WR250R for 4 years straight. I modified the hell out of it, and it's my favorite dual sport in the world. I absolutely love the thing. So let's compare it to the 300L on paper. Now, the 250R is a great bike, but it is high revving and lacking in torque, and that's where this Honda might be the antidote here. It does have its power slightly low in the rev range in both horsepower and torque, and it makes a bit more torque and it makes a teensy bit more power. So that is positive there. But we do have the WR250R being the king of the lightweight dual sports as always. It's still going to be, even though the 300 has been on a diet, it's still going to be 5 kilos lighter than the 300. So who knows whether that weight will offset the power gain. So we're not really sure there. The other clear thing that we have is the suspension. To me, it looks like, at least on paper, that the suspension on this Honda still cannot compare and hold a candle to the 250R suspension. That's one of the things that sets the 250R apart from its dual sport buddies in the 250cc and this 300 range. What makes me say this? Well, you get more ground clearance. It's fully adjustable on the WR250R. It's very easy to modify and improve, whereas the Honda, you're a little more restricted on what you can do with the standard suspension and how much you can change it and upgrade it. It can be done, but it's just a little harder, a little more work, and often costs a bit more, whereas the WR250R, you're getting better suspension straight out the gate with more clearance and more travel and more adjustability. But as you know, or maybe you don't know, if you ride a lot of bikes, often you can be very surprised by a bike. You look at all the specifications and you get this idea of what a bike could be based on the bikes you've ridden before. But then when you hop on the bike, the culmination of all those specifications can be very different to the actual riding experience. It's hard to explain, but sometimes all the bits and pieces either come together to make a bike that's far better than expected, or they just don't come together in the right way. So whether it will be better than the WR250R is hard to tell. I don't think it will just be different. That's how I look at all these bikes. I know a lot of people get caught up in saying, oh, Team Red's the best, or Team Blue's the best, or go Team Green, and they all get in their little camps and throw rocks at each other. I never really look at a bike as the best bike and the worst bike. I really look at bikes and what niche they're trying to attract, as it's really up to the person as to which bike is best for who. So there's bikes that are best at certain things. For me, for this bike to be the absolute unicorn, I think it needed to be a 350cc, but I am still going to go test ride this, and yes, I will be considering this for my new bike should we get this in Australia. But I definitely will be looking at this as my next bike. But let's see what Kawasaki do as well. Don't forget, they're releasing their dual sports on the 23rd of this month, which I am also hanging on the edge of my seat for, so it's very exciting times. I know some of you are frustrated why I haven't rushed out and just bought a dual sport so I can get off-road now that I'm fit enough to ride again after my health problems. But sometimes, like this time, it pays to be patient. I'm very excited. We are finally seeing some movement in the dual sport realm. It's fantastic to see new life being breathed into the category, and that's the reason why I'm really so excited. It's not so much that this is the unicorn motorcycle that we've all been waiting for, although it does look very promising. It's just the fact that we're seeing a reinvigoration in the market. It's been very quiet in the small displacement dual sports category, and that's where my heart really lies. And seeing that the market is really responding and updating this series of motorcycles is very, very exciting for me, and I just can't wait to see what bikes come out in the future. So that about wraps up this episode of Adventure News. Don't forget to smash that like button. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. And to all the new subscribers that I have been getting recently, you've really been piling in, so thank you and welcome to my weird little part of the internet. And I hope you're enjoying the content. Let me know your thoughts down below on the CRF300L and the 300 Rally, as I'd love to know all your thoughts. And as always, guys, I've been solid. Don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.